Welcome back. Welcome back. It is day number 7, session 7 of our Embroider versus Challenge. It is I, K22 with Sheevs Emporium, again with the Kylo skin, as we continue our third session of this Embroider Challenge. Let's go ahead and step on over to the desk and let's explain exactly how this has progressed into what we've gotten to today. A little bit tighter format. Follow me. And so just like that, we're on day number 7, episode 7. How fitting to have this skin. So once again, welcome. Pausing for reflection here as we move forward. Oh, we have a good one today. Our patented chisel method. We're going to go explain that a little bit more. And so what we've done here is gotten a directed art subject matter from Sheev directly. We also have target stitch counts. Try to keep it under 100,000 stitches. That's right. This is a very large embroidered item that we're going to go ahead and recreate and then face off against the computer digitized version. We'll see who wins. But rest assured, we are going to embroider this. The program is Hatch Embroidery. Again, the style here is going to be heavily tracked audio from White Bat Audio. Thank you so much for providing this stream material. Program of choice is going to be Hatch. Mostly narrative, a little bit instructive. Let's dive right in. And so just to recap, before we start bouncing around, the previous videos were audited. Bit of a frame rate drop. We may cut this live stream short just to dial in some of these settings. Audio was a little bit overpowering in comparison to just overall frame drops. And again, this is without touching any zooming in and out function. As you can see up top right corner, we're at 30% zoom. On this channel, we get in there really close. And so with that back and forth zoom function, bear with us. Again, tweak some settings. We should be able to have a more fluid stream session. And so just to recap our patented pending chisel method that we've utilized, we created one entire shape, started cutting it down. We're going to be moving top to bottom, left to right. So we're going to be moving down into these lower sections here. And let's go ahead and zoom on in and see what kind of detail that we've covered. In our last episode, we added much more detail to the canopy, created this nice curve fill, which you can see here as it arcs on the back edge of this canopy. Continuing on this side. Moved on to the upper portion of the undersuit. But on a rewatch, the very first thing that we're going to consider Let's see how these look with a different color behind them. Again, our selections. So because we have some knowledge about this undersuit in specific, this is where we can take some creative liberty, and instead of following the reference material, which clearly shows a very brownish hue, out of our palette here, let's try the smoky. And immediately, let's leave it in. And again, as we all know, the cape is much darker and not brown. So this will blend in nicely. You can even consider changing out. Why not, as it came to mind. Me there. Carbonation was not part of the entertainment schedule today, but the fizzy lifting drinks are always on rotation. So what we've done here is selected every single one of these highlight areas. Let's go ahead and change that color as well to a smoky. Okay, it's a little interesting. We can go ahead and do a heavy storm. That looks more in line with creating that highlight effect. Now, our secondary portion, we're going to just zoom right back in. This is our shape here, again with another patented pending technique. We're going to go ahead and duplicate that, throw a triple run around it, hide it for a brief moment just to see. I'm going to go ahead and cut off this entire section. And what I mean by that is our chisel method is going to be on display. So let's go ahead and record a nice intro here. Hi everyone, thank you for joining Sheevs Emporium. This is K22 displaying our patented pending chisel method. Follow along as we take a shape, take a knife to it, and like a surgeon for cutting the first time, we make our cut. And the reason it's so important is, again, just deleting areas that would not need to be present and be stitched over the same line, creating a very puncture resistant possible broken needle, etc., etc. Moving on, let's go ahead and add some more of this detail right in here. We'll go ahead and relax our selection tool, pick our appropriate color. Reflect right over here on the bottom left of your screen. Dive right into digitize open shape. select our triple run. And here we are. May not seem like much, but it's honest work. So we're going to go back in and unhide all. That brings up our next shape, which we're going to go ahead and add. And here was a good point brought up on rewatch is we should be selecting the very largest pieces to create an outline with. And for that reason is it'll create this entire section here and along here. So let's go ahead and just do that now. Again, using our new tool, new method. Look at that, it's already on a triple run. And if we do it, say, on this section here, again, same concept. What we've done here is allowed the larger shape to really define in, settle in all these areas. Now, what we're always aware of is slicing, dicing, and cutting down those overlaps. So I can tell already that we're going to go ahead and chop this entire top half. Again, let's go ahead and confirm this. And we can see we already have in the valley here, as we zoom on in at our setting shows 100% zoom. It's staying at 100 as I zoom in and out, so I do apologize for that. Take our knife tool. I'm going to cut all the way to here. Center mouse to confirm. And we do have in the works a screen capture display option being researched that if everything isn't being narrated, at least upon rewatch or for those following along at some point, it's going to be a lot easier to see the keystrokes. So that takes care of our first larger shape. Let's go ahead as we get our audio remixed and reset here in the next few moments. Let's go ahead and cut this one as well. I'm going to make this cut here. Now I just realized some of these may need to be deleted off stream. go. We hit a quick undo because we had the wrong item selected. Let's go ahead and hit the knife tool on the right section here. Again, always be aware. And especially go back in and delete. So on the reset, I may not have deleted. And here it is. It still remains. Let's make sure. And you can tell by changing the color. Yeah, this would have been an entire duplicate area. Let's be aware of our pacing. Even though we're trying to move at a quicker pace to get more done within the stream time allotted for the day, let's reduce the carelessness of the mistakes down a little bit lower here. Now, it looks like we did delete our detailed section there. So let's go ahead and just redo that. Fairly easy. Going back to the digitize open. We have the correct color. We're on the triple run. We're going to go ahead and change it this time around. Right click, unhide all. And there we have it. So just to recap briefly, what we did is outlined the larger shapes moving forward, and that's going to reduce a lot of these overlaps, and we'll cut down the smaller shapes, which makes way more sense. It's possible to weld all of these together so that the computer would auto branch is the correct term, and it would also auto route for whatever jumps are needed. And here's a good moment to just reflect on the amount of jumps. Yes, we're going to try to reduce them, but at the same time, the only reason that they would be reduced in any sense is to assist with the production facility concept. We're moving beyond that and creating an item that is 9 inches by 7.5 in the 100,000 stitch range. And so our starts and stops, our trims are going to be far more than what would be considered a feasible project. And that's the whole point of why we're here as we move forward. Let's push the limit and boundary of our self-taught approach. And as it was recently shared, an opinion that was given, which means nothing, does have some value though, is that unless you're taught by a certain specific person, you have no idea how to digitize. And I beg to differ that as long as you put in the time and effort and are open, which we definitely are, we too, and you too at home, can learn any item moving forward. So again, understood the delivery of what that person was trying to relay is not going to enter this stream's realm today. And as we move forward, which section should we do next? Top to bottom, left to right. This next armor piece looks very, very promising. Let's go ahead and confirm which areas. And that was a color change just to simply, it's a lot easier by hiding though. You can see that we're going to be cutting this outline from here down to avoid any overlaps. Going back to our edit objects, knife tool. And there we have it. Let's go immediately and delete. Our duplicate area. And here, today on episode 7, we're going to introduce a new concept and technique that we've discovered called stamping. So what we're going to do here, digitize open. Going back to a single run this time. We're in the correct color, doesn't really matter because this. There we have it. Now, cut that a little short, so let's go back into our reshape. Let's drag this point. And that was our mistake. This was a digitized open. We're going to go back to a digitized closed. Apologies there. As we move into this newer area, again, there's going to be a little bit of back and forth. So to describe what we're doing here is we're going to outline this shape. And this software has a feature. There we have it. One outline. One shape. Got it. Now, keep track. What we're going to do is we're going to select our back tatami stitch armor piece, and we're going to go to a carving stamp, which is the new method on stream number 7 being introduced today. And we're going to go ahead and use object here right above this avatar. You can see we can start selecting. We're going to highlight this new shape that we created, and you can see that our selection tool does create it there. We're going to use that stamp, and you may not be able to see it on your screen due to the refresh and frame rate, but we're going to place, hopefully it's translating, we have a shape in the form of a stamp that'll be carved. We click once to set. The second is for the angle. Go ahead and just leave that as it was. Click again. And there we have it. We're going to go back to our selection tool. For a brief moment, I'm going to go ahead and hide this top section, and there we have it. One carving stamp reflected on the shoulder bell pauldron armor of Mando here. And again, this is just the extra detailed attempt By the way, for those of you keeping track, we are at 95,000 stitches, 969 estimated. We're allowed to go over 100,000. Let's try to keep it to 120. We still have quite a bit to go yet. And the reason for that is on a single head flatbed embroidery machine, for that amount of stitches, that amount of color changes, equivalates to a significant amount of time being invested into creating one single item. And it's not that it can't be done, it's that they're going to be selectively chosen for the ones that are going to be invested. And we are at our third live session of streaming this embroidered challenge. I can tell you already, I'm going to change this to a smoky color, unhide. As we zoom in, it's going to be a very nice detailed indentation that creates a nice valley for this detailed section to come back in and stitch over. Now, finishing up our armor section here. Let's go ahead and rehide that. Making great time at only 30 minutes on the stream so far. It's looking like we're going to be able to get most of this armor section completed. So let's go back in. We're going to relax our selection tool. Pick the correct color, and go back to digitize open shapes, go back to our triple run, and this time we're going to create this outlined section here, being careful not to invade the other section. Again, zooming in to what it says now, reflective 845%. And back out to our settings of about 100. So again, if that causes a refresh rate on your end, you have to bear with us as we dial in some of these settings. Interesting. This last jump over, let's go ahead and edit that shape by hitting reshape. Let's move this down here. There we are. Then we'll delete it and bring this line just to here. And that'll look far better. Now, on the rewatch, it was considered, let's go ahead and save some of these satins I'm going to go ahead and put it in now, but what we're going to do is save those different colors as we move through the object once more. So for now, what we're doing is outlines and black shapes. We're going to go ahead and change that back over to a black just to keep it in line. Again, this is just to assist with some of the sequencing that we're going to be doing off screen. We've come to the conclusion that it's a little too click friendly and not as stream friendly as this content is. But at some point we're going to be going through similar to this, and we're going to be adding items just like this. And it'll allow us to possibly jump back and forth where needed to. There's one that's needed right up there. And so you can quickly see that as we move through the colors of highlights versus the darker shades, we're going to be able to keep this sequencing a little bit more intact and user-friendly as we move forward. So I'm going to just delete those, go back to unhide all, and there we have it. There's our shoulder armor piece, nicely outlined. Let's go back into our chest armor. For now, we're going to go ahead and lay down a blanket stitch because this shape is going to use our chisel method. We come back to edit objects, go to our knife tool, and we can see here that this entire area of a lighter shade is one solid cut. And what that's done is created two sections right up against each other. It allows both to exist and is far more workflow. Again, I've not come across this, but it's the same concept of what a sculptor would do in any format. They would use a large surface and start cutting away at what is not needed. Here we have an entire area stitched, and what we're doing is chopping it down to create exactly the shapes that we need. And so once again, we can cut that out. Go ahead and make a couple more. Now, each of these shapes, we don't necessarily have to even cut them, but it does allow to create a whole different texture, detail. Let's make sure that we cut this just right. And so you're going to be able to see the example of this. These are some of the auto travels that we're going to go ahead and remove. Take care of our sequencing again off stream. Go back to a tatami fill. And there we have it. We've taken one shape which retains our entire outline, and this allows us to select, and this is where the fun truly does begin. Let's find our shape. And we decided our highlights for armor are going to be number 13, which is listed as a Saturn gray versus the white. So again, let's click back right over here as we zoom, calm down on the zooming in and out. Switch that right on over to a Saturn gray, and that matches up with that contrasting detail. Looks like that third section is going to also be in the lighter shade. Now, I'm going to go back into a blanket stitch for this one, and this shape is going to get chiseled just a little bit more. And that simple cut is going to allow us, let's change these fills back over to a tatami on both. But what we're going to do is we're going to select this bottom piece and change it right back over to the sterling, which was listed correct. And there we have it. In the silence, let's go ahead and pause as we reset and just take note of what has happened here. We've been able to add and change over our upper cape section to a more accurate color. Introduced a new carving technique to our armor piece. Let's go ahead and do that once more. So we're going to click on this, hide selected. We go back to our darker shade. Let's digitize a close shape. Can be an outline, that's fine. Single run's perfectly fine. So if I'm not mistaken, this is called, I believe, the heart. And so there, we've created our shape. If you're following along and recall, go and unhide all. We can select our object, come into our carving stamp, go to start selecting, and there we have our perfectly aligned shape. We're going to use that. We're going to just press down. We have no rotation, so we're going to do 2 clicks. Once we get it centered, click and click. Going to hit escape to back out of the carving function. And there we have it. If we scroll all the way down and hide, just a little bit more detailed input. That's going to be more reflective of what's going on here. This might be a little interesting, but we're going to go ahead and use our outline method. We're going to go ahead and unhide that as well. In fact, let's go ahead and just delete entirely. And here we go. We're just slicing away the excess. Let's go ahead and add that detail on this item. Again, it doesn't have to be on every single one. I'm finding with a little bit more variety, those. As we pause for reflection, this is a little interesting where this may look a little bit closer to accurate by leaving it. Versus changing out that entire shade. Another way to change this out is we can always change the fill. There we go. That's going to work out extremely well. I was thinking to let's go ahead and change the fill and change the color. But that would be a little much. Or would it? And that's the interesting thing, is that we'll take a first attempt. We'll note if there's going to be any updates or changes. Right at 46 minutes. Let's go ahead and hide some of these selections. Reason for that is it's going to leave all of the outlines, and we're going to come through with a black, and we're going to add that much more level of detail. So let's make sure our selection tool is picked appropriately. We're going to digitize some freehand close shapes in the satin. We're going to just zoom right on in. Now, we don't have a tablet in use, so some of these shapes are going to be a little bit more varied and random. A little too thick on that. Now, we'll probably go back through and double check these, of course. There is such a thing as going too thin on a satin. We'll cross that road when we get there. Interesting. This can be deleted already. Now, going back into our freehand closed, let's actually go into digitize closed with a fill and a satin. Let's get in really close and let's get exact on this one. Back to a freehand closed. Going back to a digitized open and a triple run. We're going to create some of these hard lines. So we can double back up on it. Okay. Should about do it for this portion here. Let's go ahead and unhide all. Take a step back and we can see exactly. Now, our satins could obviously be moved down. So I'm going to move them to the very last. And the reason for that is our outlines are going to be the first layer of detail, and then the satin is going to build on top of all of that. As you can kind of see in this example, we have the fills, the satins, and then these extra end pieces. We'll be able to simply go back in and resequence them in the right format, again off stream. So as we are hitting our 51-minute mark, let's go ahead and consider this one our our stream attempt today for day number 7. Again, creating some accuracy improvements on the armor using a stamp function. This line right here is just not working. Go ahead and hit delete on that one. There we go. And there we have it. Our closer attempt. Our next session, we're going to go ahead and approach our sleeve. Lower part of the bandolier. Now, we haven't even really adjusted the stitch angle on these. That's fine. We'll get to that. So kind of looking ahead, what we're going to do is slice the other portion of the armor, come back around, then finish up the sleeve, bandolier, glove, joystick, and this could be very, very near completion on our next stream, which would be then followed by a debut of a time lapse, possibly, of this stitched item. Let's go ahead and get to our throne room as we transition out of here. So if you stuck in there with us, I want to thank you. If you're considering a subscription, if this is some of the content that you're looking for, appreciate you stopping by as we learn a little bit more on our digitization journey. We do have in the works, in the goals rather, a certain embroidery machine that's going to come to life soon, allowing us to create far more detailed items, far larger items. So if you go back to our stream 1, stream 2, a lot of this has been covered of what machine. But join us for day number 8, episode number 8, as we finish up this, our Embroider challenge, go up against the computer animation. And so we're closing the vault